distinguished members of the faculties, my learned brother, Judge Justice A.F. Abdul Rahman, dear students, good afternoon, Assalamu alaikum. I would like to ask two questions before I start my deliberation. First one, is that how many of you here do not like children? Anyone? Not a single one does not like children. So you all like children. That's a good sign. It's a good sign because then I am talking to the right people. The second question, do any of you plan to deal with child rights or rights of children in your career ahead? Don't know yet. Some. Well, I hope by the time we finish, some of you will be possibly encouraged to deal with child rights. Now, you're all lawyers, some in infancy, some graduates, and some doing post-graduation. So I will try to concentrate on the legal aspects of child rights. There are also, of course, other aspects of child rights, including psychology, child behavior, child nutrition, but I will not go into any of those. Children are children. We all love them, actually. We like to feel that they are nurtured and happy when we are there. We like to cuddle them. And by definition, anyone from the birth up to the age of 18 is as a child. And they are to be treated as such by our law, under our Constitution, as well as our Children Act of 2013, which is the current law. Now, laws are made for the protection of person and property, and they're applicable to all citizens of the country. And that, believe it or not, includes children. Because as soon as a child is born, he becomes a citizen. Now, let us talk about the citizens of this country. A child born to Bangladeshi parents in Bangladesh will most certainly be a citizen of Bangladesh. And all the laws applicable in Bangladesh will apply equally to the child. So, if all citizens are bound by the law, they all enjoy the equal protection of the law under Article 37 of our Constitution, why do we need separate and different laws for children? The answer is quite simple. Children are accepted internationally as a vulnerable group. And our Constitution recognizes that children and other vulnerable groups, including women and the backward citizens of our country, they are to be treated differently. So although the Constitution says all citizens are equal and all are to be treated equally under the law of this land, the Constitution also says in Article 28(4) that special provisions can be made as positive discrimination in favor of women and children and the backward communities. So the Constitution is allowing discrimination, so long as it is positive discrimination in favor of this vulnerable group. And why do we need special laws for children? Because they are small, because they are weak, and they are targets of the ones who are bigger and stronger, more powerful, and I dare say more brutal. And I'll explain to you in a few minutes, or it'll be obvious in a few minutes why I say this. You all remember Rajan? Samiul Alam Rajan, boy from Sylhet. He allegedly stole something, was tied to a pole and very badly beaten. Beaten so badly that he died as a result of it. Do we remember Shagor Bormon, who worked as a textile mill in Rupganj town, not far from Dhaka? He was done to death by inserting an air compressor into his rectum. Air pumped him up just like a balloon. His inner parts were blown apart and he died. And there have been many cases since those, similar. And it goes on. What lesson do we learn from these? We humans have become inhuman in our attitude, in our behavior, in the way we deal with people who are obviously smaller, less powerful than ourselves. In fact, I would say that we have become rather worse than animals. Animals actually behave far better with their young. They protect them. But we beat people until we see blood. We say the children are future of our nation. How far do we believe that? The rights children are future generations. But we tend to forget that they are also present citizens. Now, to what extent do the courts provide some benefit for children or some redress for the perils that children face? Let's talk about Article 17 of the Constitution. The state shall adopt effective measures for the purpose of establishing a uniform, mass-oriented and universal system of education, extending free and compulsory education to all children. We have a law which says that education up to primary A level will be all free and compulsory. In fact, we have a little bit more than that now. Children up to class 8, I believe, standard 8, will receive free education. But the question that we have to ask ourselves is the education really free? And is the compulsory education, is it effective? I can refer you to a judgment that we delivered in the High Court Division. It's a reported case, 63 DLR page 95, where we highlighted some of the difficulties that the children face in receiving education. We said the lack of education could be termed as the most obvious catalyst in the unending poverty cycle. And we went on to explain what we meant by that. You see, we're not talking about the children of the affluent families. Let us talk about the children, the vast majority of children from the poor, poverty-stricken background. The parents of those children do not understand economics. They do not understand finance. They do not understand the benefit of investment. They live from hand to mouth, from day to day. They work from morning till evening. Whatever they earn during that day, they eat. That day. Next day is tomorrow. And tomorrow will come, and tomorrow we shall see how we feed ourselves. Now consider those families. Consider the children of those families. The parents, even if they wanted their child to be educated, would not feel comfortable sending the child to school when the child can go to work and earn a little bit of money which will help towards the family's finances, towards feeding the family. And education is not free. Books may be free. They may not have to pay fees, but they have to have uniforms. They have to have stationery, pencils, paper. Who pays for those? Without proper uniform, we have seen a number of cases. The children go to school, they are picked upon by others, and they stop going to school. They are bullied. So, what we suggested in that case is that for compulsory education and free education, as we call it, to be realistic and available, accessible to the mass of the poor, poverty-stricken people of this country, there must be sufficient incentive. The parents must be given that amount of money, or either in cash or in kind, or in a different way, so that they can be encouraged to send their children to school. Because 50 taka per day for a poor family is 50 takas. If the child can go out to earn 50 takas, why would he go to school? So what we said, we spelled it out in judgment, that give them either the 50 takas or the opportunity to earn the 50 takas, so that they will feel encouraged to send their child to school. Then we have the question of dropouts. Children go to school and they leave. So what we suggested is give them a meal in the afternoon, so that at least when they go in the morning, they will stay at least up to the feeding time, because they get a free meal. And I'm happy to say that soon after that judgment, I don't watch television very often, but I just happened to see very briefly the Prime Minister, Honourable Prime Minister of this country, said that she was introducing midday meal. That was long back, but it has been introduced now. It is now in practice. So there we have the implementation of requirement of the Constitution, that is under Article 17 for free and compulsory education. Now, we provide education in schools. When the children go to the school, what happens? They get beaten by the teachers. There came a time, I remember in 2010, when every day, when we opened the newspaper, we saw pictures of children who had been very badly beaten, sometimes hospitalized. One actually died as a result of corporal punishment meted out by the teachers in the schools. There is a law against one person beating up another person, and that is very much in the penal code. I cannot punch any person that I want to punch, because if I do, That will be assault and battery, and I will be liable to be prosecuted criminally. And there will be fine or even jail. But when the children are beaten in the schools, what happens? Is the effect the same? They get injured, the children get injured, they have to be hospitalized, they have to have medical treatment, but no prosecution. There's a small story that I can tell you. Having issued this rule, we said that this is against the fundamental rights of the child because he is not consenting to be beaten in the school. One child goes to the school, he goes for getting education. It's not like the adage, আমাদের দেশে বলে, স্যার বাচ্চাটাকে মানুষ করবেন, রক্ত মাংস আপনার, হাড়িটা ফেরত দেবেন, মানুষ করে দেবেন, as if he's a monkey. What are we doing? What are we saying? This is not what we want from the child. We want the school to teach the child, educate the child, make him a better person. Manush kore diben, yes. Not that monkey theke manush korben, but shikkito kore diben. Make him equipped for life. So, after seeing all these paper cuttings, I won't tell you how I managed to get this case into the court, but somehow it happened. And when it happened, we issued a rule saying that it is against the fundamental rights of the child to be beaten in school. And luckily, that evening, we had a wedding of one of our friends or colleagues, and he was introducing me to high-ups. One of them happened to be the Secretary for Ministry of Education. So I sat next to him during the dinner, and I was whispering to him that, look, today I issued a rule against you, but don't take it personally. It's for the children of this country. They should not be beaten in school. Please do something about it. But then what happened was, maybe I was quite a bit loud and everybody else heard it. And then everybody said, well, it happens in every school, it happened to us. If we didn't get beaten, why would we be? Then I had to tell them a story within a story. That once I said the same thing to an honorable minister, very prominent minister. And he told me that if I had not been beaten, I wouldn't be where I am. And I very quickly retorted, yes, you have been beaten and that is why you are where you are. But if you hadn't been beaten, you'd be a better person. Now, it is a question of attitude. We, the grown-ups, treat children very badly because they are small, because they are powerless, because they cannot hit back. Would I dare punch somebody in the nose? Somebody of my size? I wouldn't, because I know two things. One, he may punch me back, and second, if I punch him and hurt him, he will go to the police and I will be behind bars. Now, do I think twice before I slap a child, hit a child, beat a child? We don't. We show our power. Actually, we do the same thing, sadly, with women. So, the law allows for punishment, but only after due process. Is punishment allowed in the schools? The answer is no. And I can say that quite categorically because you have some laws. If you look at that case,